Hello and welcome back to Soulful Speaking. My guest today is Betsy Pepine. She is a best-selling author, speaker, and serial entrepreneur in real estate. And her book is Breaking Boxes, Dismantling the Metaphorical Boxes That Bind Us. Welcome, Betsy.
Thank you, Lori. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I love to dive straight into the beginning and then see where it goes from there. So let's start with, where did your speaking journey first begin?
Oh, wow. I'm trying, I've been speaking a lot. I've been speaking for decades for my career, but, for my book, it began about a year ago. So I don't know what you mean, but, speaking has been a natural part of the work that I've been doing, both in the current occupation that I'm in my past occupation. But, the speaking tour, it wasn't a speaking tour, but, speaking for the book that launched last year started last October.
Some people answer with like their first memory in childhood. It's really wherever you want to take it.
Okay.
The question that popped into my head from that answer is, how did the speaking for your book tour feel different to you than the speaking that you had done for your career prior to that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Very different, because in my career, it all of my speaking has been about data and products or services that I support or research or sell. This The speaking that I'm doing for the book is totally different. It has nothing to do with my occupation, and it's more about life and our journeys through it. So it's just a totally different audience, a totally different message. Definitely feels 100% more vulnerable. You know, so it's just a totally different experience.
Mm-hmm. And how have you navigated that vulnerable feeling?
I don't know that. So compared to the speaking in the past, it was vulnerable, but compared to submitting my book for publishing, that was incredibly, I felt the most vulnerable then. Once the book was out, and once I made that commitment and I knew the book was out, then it doesn't feel as vulnerable, because it's the message, the content's already out in the world. And so I'm just talking about it. So I don't feel as vulnerable as when I push that submit button to my publisher to start, publishing the book.
Yeah. And what called you to write the book in the first place?
Oh, so I was on a journey, I'm 50, I just turned 57, and I was on a journey for the last 10 years, trying to uncover why, even though on paper it looked like I was successful, why I was unhappy. And in that journey, through journaling, meditation, EMDR, bioenergetic work, somatic work, yoga, I mean, a whole bunch of different modalities, I came to the realization that what was my source of discontentment came mostly from my feeling confinement in these, I call them metaphorical boxes, that have been, I feel like I've been in a lot of my life. And I recognize that some boxes served me for some periods of time, but a lot of boxes either never served me, or they served me, but I chose not to exit them when they no longer served me. So they were confining me. And so anyway, I started writing about those stories. And then the more I spoke with others about my journey, they would share with me their experiences and their frustration about recognizing, sometimes they didn't even recognize they're in a box, but sometimes they did, but they couldn't get themselves out of boxes that they wanted to. And so I wrote the book in service of those people. My hope was to just help one person shed light on a box that they perhaps didn't realize that they were in, that was holding them back, and giving them the courage to make steps to get out of boxes that no longer serve them.
And what are some of the boxes that you talk about in the book and that you've discovered for yourself and others?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, they run the gamut of gender, boxes based. These are attitudes, opinions, beliefs that others, societies, institutions, culture impose on us and ourselves. We put ourselves in boxes, I believe. So it could be the gender box. You know, what is it for me? What is it like being a female in this country? Political boxes, industry, family of origin boxes. That's a huge one for people. I mean, it's just, sexual orientation could be a box. Being an author, I mean, is a box. I wanted to be in that box, and that box has served me well so far, um, but other boxes, not so much. So there's the boxes are everywhere. And once you start seeing them, you can't stop not seeing them,
Mm-hmm.
and you do see how, I mean, at least I saw and continue to see how I put other people in boxes and how that may not serve them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love to categorize things.
Hmm.
Our brains are wired to do that, and then it can be hard to let go of the categorization, both for ourselves and how we're seeing others.
Yeah.
What were some of the boxes that you realized, perhaps through the writing of the book and the journaling, were no longer serving you? And how did you let go of them?
Um, Probably the biggest one was is around my family of origin. Um, I think everybody has a family of origin box. It's just different. I was talking to a gentleman on a podcast once, and he said in his family it was a tradition that the firstborn son names their firstborn son Junior, like Michael Junior or whatever. I don't remember what the first name was, and so he was the firstborn, and he had a son, and he was expected to name it Michael Junior. And this was like fifth generation, and he was choosing not to do that, and
Mm-hmm.
it caused major disruption in the family, to the
Mm-hmm.
point where the parents didn't even talk to him for months. And that was so interesting to me, because that was something that's so foreign to me. Like, that is not an expectation in my family, but it very much impacted him. But in my family, among other things, there was definitely an expectation that everybody be a physician. And
Mm-hmm.
if you weren't, you were not living up to your full potential. You were not considered as valued in the family system, um, among other things. So that was huge for me, and that weighed on me heavily. And I chose not to be a physician, but the stigma that I felt in my family of origin stayed with me. And I feel like over the last 10 years, I no longer feel that. I mean, it's still there, but I don't let it impact me. I understand my value. I have disconnected myself from that expectation. So that's probably the biggest one that's impacted me personally throughout my life.
Mm-hmm. And did you include others' stories in the book? And do
Oh,
you have some favorite
yeah.
or
So
stories that are popping to mind of others?
yeah, so I have tons of stories, but they were all my stories. I did not, and that might be in the second book, but these were all my stories and my journey. I mean, there's just so many. There's so many.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember, you know, so being female in this country, I remember reading a very well-known national business newspaper, and I was visiting my sister and was reading the paper, and I put it down, and for some reason, something was bothering me about, I couldn't figure out what it was, but it was nagging me about what I had read, and I couldn't figure out what it was. So then I went back and read the section of the newspaper again, and I saw that the section of the paper was, the business section, and it was highlighting all these different businesses and variety of different stories, and in different authors, and every time in a story the author introduced the female for the first time, behind her name were, in parentheses, was her age.
Mm.
Every time they mentioned a male in the stories in this newspaper, there was no parentheses.
Hmm.
And this was not a, like, 40 under 40. It wasn't it was just a normal newspaper, just reporting on stories. It had nothing to do with people's ages. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, that's why is that important? And two, Like, how do they even get that? Because I've been interviewed for a lot of newspapers and no one's ever asked me my age. So, and these
Mhm.
are all, and I checked, I'm like, they're all different authors contributing. So I'm like, is this a standard for the paper? Does the editor go back and add the women's names behind? I mean, it was just bizarre to me. And this is a very well known national paper. So I wrote the editor. This was only a couple of years ago. And I said, this is kind of insane. Like, what was the messaging here? And he was surprised and he said he'd have to look into it. I did get a response. And then he emailed me back and said, you're right. He said, we need to change this. But
Mm.
it's just things that there's so many things. I was at a doctor's office. I remember once, so I'm divorced. And when I first got divorced, it was the first time I'd been to the physician after my divorce. And there was like a physician intake form, patient intake form, and it asks you all these things to fill out. And one of the first questions was, what is your marital status? And it was single, married, divorced, or widowed.
Mhm.
And I had answered that question hundreds of times in my life, never thought anything of it. But freshly out of a divorce, I stared at that question, froze, and felt very violated by,
Mm.
I mean, I did. I felt violated by them asking me that question because for a variety of reasons, one of which is what I was being seen for had nothing to do with my marital status. They didn't need to know if I was in a relationship that I deemed serious enough to take to the courthouse steps to get the government stamp of approval. That
Mhm.
had nothing to do with why I was being there. And what information is that giving them that's going to change what I'm there for? And I knew the minute I checked one of those boxes, whoever was reading that would assume something more than just I'm in a committed relationship.
Mhm.
And and was just recently divorced. So I'm like, okay, I'm technically single, right? I'm
Mhm.
but I'm also divorced. I was married. What box do I check? And if they're expecting me, because I assume they're expecting me to check the divorce box, at what point in time do I get to then return to single status? Right. I
Mhm.
mean, I've been divorced. I was only married 9 years of my 57 years of my life. But
Mhm.
I think most people would deem I should classify myself as divorced and not single.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, it's just yet we just give people this information and not think anything of it. So I didn't check any box. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I turned it in and sure enough, I was able to be seen without being shown. So there's just the boxes are everywhere.
Mhm.
Assumptions are being made about us all the time.
Yeah. How do the boxes or how did the boxes hold you back? And then what happened as you started
Mhm,
to choose no
mhm.
boxes, different
Yeah.
boxes?
Yeah. It's just an awareness of boxes. It's not that boxes are all bad. You know, I'm in real estate, so I think I see boxes all the time, and they're meant to protect our valuable assets temporarily until we
Mhm.
move. Then we take our assets out, our valuables out, and we dismantle the boxes and put them at the curb for the garbage man or woman. So
Mhm.
I don't feel like not boxes are necessarily bad, but they sometimes don't serve, or sometimes they're very narrow minded. Um, and for me, it was more, well, one being held back. Like I, my first career was in the pharmaceutical industry because I knew I didn't want to be a physician. That would have killed my soul. I grew up in hospitals working alongside my father. I knew I didn't want that life, but
Mhm.
I chose a career in the pharmaceutical industry to appease that pressure that I felt to be in the healthcare profession.
Mhm.
I didn't like it at all. And it
Mhm.
was only because I got divorced and laid off in a very short period of time, both of those events, that it made me pause and say, the universe is telling me that I am not on the right path. And
Mhm.
if not now, when? And I pivoted to real estate. So that held me back. I could have had another whole decade in a career that I absolutely love had I
Mhm.
not been felt so confined by this family expectation.
Yeah. What
Um,
do you love about real estate?
oh wow. What's not to love? I mean, it's to me, because it's not about real estate. It's about connection. And so with real estate, how many times have you moved?
Oof. Um, I can't count. I will say there was a period of like 7 years where I moved every single year.
Yeah.
And I remember that period
Yeah.
because every time I let go of more,
Yeah.
and I had it down to like both a combination of rhythm and science in
Yeah.
that period
Yeah.
where I could, I had a system for packing it up, packing everything up. You take the things that you don't need first and you put them in all of the boxes. And then when you get to the other end, moving from like one bedroom apartment to one bedroom apartment, always letting go of things that I didn't need as I
Yeah.
went.
Yeah.
By the final move into the condo that I purchased before I met my now husband and moved in here with him,
Yeah.
I was like completely unpacked with stuff up on the walls within 48 hours
Wow. I love it.
because I had such a rhythm. And then
Mhm.
is the rhythm, as a friend of mine said, like a lot of times when you're moving from place to place to place, when you finally kind of do it the way that is the best from the move itself to once you get the place decorated the way you want it, you're
Mhm.
going to move again.
Mhm.
She kept telling me that. And it ended up being true.
Mhm.
That was the final time I moved by myself. And it
Mhm.
was this like smooth, rhythmic,
Mhm.
oh, I get to enjoy the place I've moved into. And then I moved into my husband's place, which does not, it's just harder because you
Yeah.
don't have blank walls and
Yeah.
templates where you tell the movers, this is where I want the couch because
Yeah.
I measured it
Yeah.
and all
Yeah.
of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So for me, it's not about selling the house. It's about getting the privilege of being a part of someone's life during a major life event, because most people can can't know how many times they've bought and sold their own homes, right?
Hmm.
Not rentals, but when you bought and you sold
Yeah.
your homes. You can count how
Just
many
one.
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody knows it's a life event. But what a lot of people don't realize is that life event is precipitated by another life event. The need to buy or sell a home is almost always precipitated by some other event in your life. So you have to buy or sell. So if you're representing the buyer or the seller, you've got two life events that you're helping manage. And then on the other side of the transaction, the same thing. The buyer or the seller also has two life events. So you're dealing with four life events, and you get the privilege of helping walk somebody through that part of their life. So I feel like I'm more of a therapist than I am a realtor, honestly. Um, and to have that privilege, you really do I become very close friends with the people that we help. So that's what I love about it, the connection. We don't sell houses. Houses sell themselves. We would never want to sell somebody something they don't need or don't want. What we're really selling is them choosing us when they need to buy or sell.
Hmm.
So it's just for me and my personality, it's just amazing that I get paid to do what I do, because I get to help people in the area that I love to help people in, and get to be a part of their lives. Um, so that is what I love. And I also love that it literally changes every day. I mean, we're
Hmm.
meeting new people every day, new experiences, unbelievable. I've seen the entire spectrum of humanity in this
Hmm.
business. I've been in it 20 years now, um, which has been eye opening. And I've also seen the spectrum of the human life. And
Mm.
that was hard and is hard, to see the whole human experience played out in front of you through others on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
what's coming, it created an awareness like I never had before in terms of how short our time here is.
Mm. I have to comment for anybody who's listening to it and not watching, or just to comment, you're so vibrant and alive. It's like the love of what
Mm.
you do and the privilege that you hold is radiating out your pores and coming across in your voice. And it is such a contrast to when you said, you know, you didn't enjoy the pharmaceutical
Mhm.
industry. There
Mhm.
was there was a clarity in your voice,
Mhm.
and there wasn't this like radiance coming out of
Mhm.
your pores.
Mhm.
So reflecting that back to you, and also if anyone is listening, the radiance started with listening to the universe, listening to the voice inside of you that said, this isn't where I'm meant to be, and you followed it.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that your speaking, when you were speaking on behalf of the pharmaceutical industry, was very clear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And speaking on behalf of your book
Mm-hmm.
and the different boxes and
Mm-hmm.
the life that you are, the boxes that you are choosing or choosing no boxes, and where that's gone,
Mm-hmm.
that your speaking is also vibrant and alive in
Mm-hmm.
a way that the pharmaceutical speaking just was never going to be.
Right. No, totally.
Yeah. What is your relationship to speaking now?
I didn't set out when I wrote the book. Honestly, the goal was just to write the book. I didn't have this. A lot of my colleagues write the book. Well, there's either two sets. Either one set of my colleagues write a book that's a total lead gen book for their business. Mine was not. Or they write a book and they want to pivot into this coaching, speaking career. I wasn't that either. I wanted to write a book and I wanted to help people. I did write a course. I have gotten speaking engagements from interestingly, businesses that have read the book that want that message in their, like at their, yearly annual meeting, but I'm not actively seeking out speaking engagements. I've been on probably 150 podcasts talking about my book, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, my goal isn't to become a professional speaker and do a tour. And that's just not, I know that's not me. What I
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What did writing the book teach you?
Well, a lot. And I like that question. So one, so I wrote, a lot of people were really surprised when I wrote the book. They assumed it was about real estate, like how to build a real estate team, business, brokerage, real estate school, whatever. And so they were very shocked that it was not about that. And I chose not to write about that because that would have been um, just very easy. It wouldn't have required a lot of mental. I do it every day. It's not exciting to me. I didn't feel like I was going to be adding any value to the space. So I chose something that was going to be a challenge for me to write. So I was surprised at how difficult it was because some of these experiences aren't very pleasant. And
Mm-hmm.
so having to relive them was, it's not something that you want to do too many times, but it's very therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
So how challenging it was to write some of those chapters. But also I'm an avid reader but I didn't recognize until I actually wrote. I mean, I've journaled, but that's different than writing I didn't write for the audience, but I had a writing coach and she said, write as though no one's ever going to read this. And so I did, but I did, in the back of your mind, if this is not a journal, you're writing, that this is going to be out there someday. What I didn't know and appreciate and was surprised by is how creative a process the act of writing is.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different ways to tell a story. And that craft was something that I had never, even though I read a lot, never really saw. And so it was so that I love to learn. And so that was eye opening to me, is just changing a word in a sentence can totally change how that sentence feels, or adding different punctuation. I mean, just amazingly how small things can make a big difference in the message that you're trying to create or the feeling that you're trying to create. So the creative process was a pleasant surprise for me. And I mean, I'm still very new at it. I've only written one book, but it was a delight because I love to be creative, and I wasn't anticipating this to be a creative endeavor. And now I see very much you're just as much an artist as a writer as you are, doing art, like
Mm-hmm.
traditional art.
Yeah. Yeah. Because people speak words all the time. I feel like we can not realize, oh, writing is an art form.
Yeah.
Speaking is an art form.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a background in theater, and people will have misconceptions about what it is that actors are doing to be actors. And they'll think
Mm-hmm.
it's easy, or that it's about indicating emotions rather than it's like going in and playing make believe. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're playing make believe, you're not trying to indicate something to an audience. You're actually responding
Mm.
as if you are that person in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and and we can just have boxes around that and misconceptions of what it is or how easy it is, because it's just words. It's not like you painted.
Right.
And yet you are often painting images and evoking it when it's done well,
Mm-hmm.
when the punctuation is considered and the rhythm is considered.
Yeah.
You can paint with words a 360-degree picture
Mm-hmm.
around someone where they
Mm-hmm.
feel like they're in it
Right.
and they're now the hero of the stories that you're putting down on
Mm-hmm.
paper or that you're speaking from a stage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree.
Um, so I feel like there are boxes. Your word for it would probably be boxes. My words are shoulds
Mm-hmm.
that people hear
Mm-hmm.
about how they're supposed to be as a leader or a speaker,
Mm-hmm.
that are impacted by some of the boxes that you've mentioned. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm put in a box of, let's say in the past, because I'm not there now, but when I was a 32-year-old single female
Mm-hmm.
getting up on a stage and speaking,
Mm-hmm.
that I've noticed can hold people back when they don't realize that they might be putting on a mask because they're hearing those shoulds.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel the boxes holding yourself back or impacting how you were when you were on a stage differently, and that there was a freedom once you wrote your book to be only in the boxes that you wanted to be in?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't know if it was because of that. Like, so in my prior experience, when I was on a stage speaking, I was representing a company. So there was that box. I mean, there was this whole, this is the image of the company. This is the brand of the company. So I was paid to represent and be this persona.
Mm-hmm.
But when I speak for my book, I'm speaking for myself. Like I'm not, there's nobody else I'm reporting to. No one's telling me how to show up. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's much more authentic. I don't have to be something that I'm not, because I'm not, there's nobody, there's nobody paying me to do, I'm not, it's different. I'm representing myself and not a company. So I think
Yeah.
that's the freedom I have felt speaking on my own versus in the past when I've spoken for companies.
Yeah. Either something that you're not, or I'm only allowed to share if my range as a human is this big.
Yeah.
When you're speaking for a company, it might be, well, you and the company align with this one little narrow
Right.
part of you. And
Right.
that's the part that they want you to go on stage and share.
Right.
And once you wrote the book and you're speaking on behalf of yourself, and I'll say, you chose this, because some speakers get stuck and they
Mm-hmm.
go on stage for their passion and they're still showing up with
Mm-hmm.
the, like, it's just my smart, it's my intelligence. I'm only supposed to bring my head here,
Mm-hmm.
rather than I have head, I have heart, I have
Yeah.
intuition, I have gut, I have laughter, I have tear,
Yeah.
I can bring it all.
Yeah.
So you chose to do that with your speaking.
Yes. Yes, totally. And I choose to self-deprecate. Like I'm very, I mean, I was asked to give a speech at, we had a 40th, I think it was 40, 35. I don't know, maybe 35 college reunion. And so I was asked to give a speech there about my book. And it was funny because everyone at women were all talking about, the joke was, and it's sad, this is another box, but does she use Botox? Right. So I opened my speech and it's like, you know what? I literally, I had forgotten to register for the session that I was speaking in, but I did not forget to get my Botox. And I opened up with that and I said, so you see where my priorities are. And it was a joke, but I could never have said that speaking in a pharmaceutical industry. That would be so inappropriate, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't care in this setting because it was me and it was authentic and it was real.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also hear the meeting your audience where you are at. Sometimes where they are at. So sometimes we have a little bit more freedom, even in speaking to a pharmaceutical industry. And it's about like, how can I meet them where they
Mhm.
are?
Mhm.
Rather than just telling ourselves, I can never,
Mhm.
even more trepidation
Mhm.
and tightness
Mhm.
from that.
Mhm.
What's your favorite speaking experience ever?
Mm. Huh. That's a hard one. Um, I would honestly probably the most recent one, which was the reunion, because that was so me and it was with my peers. These are all
Mhm.
people I went to college with. Um, and to show them a side that, I mean, they knew me more than most than in industry, but just just to be authentic with them and real with them. And um, that was probably the most rewarding.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. And you mentioned that you do have a course that came from the book.
Mhm.
So if people are really curious and they want to go connect and go deeper with you
Mhm.
or, get the book and then get the course that was inspired by the book,
Mhm.
how can they find you to do that?
Yeah, so I made it easy. It's just my name. So my website is betsypepine.com. And there's a free toolkit on there that you can register for. You can order the book, or the book's also on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the major book sellers online. And then the course is also on my website. And then I'm on all the social channels at Betsy Pepine.
Beautiful. And is there any final thought that you would like speakers who may be feeling called to write a book or
Mm.
called to share their story through speaking?
Mhm.
Do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for them?
Well, it, you know, that a picture of the, it was an Amazon bestseller logo was on my vision board for years. I knew I wanted to write this book and I almost didn't. And I'm so glad that I did. So I would just encourage your audience who's thinking about it to just start. So I like to break things down goals that seem a little unsurmountable. So for me, what worked for me, I said, what can I do? What can I commit to that won't disrupt my life too much? And I feel like I'm making progress. And so I committed to an hour a day of writing 5 days a week. And it took me a year to write the book. But that was doable. I didn't feel burnout. I didn't feel like it was pressure. I looked forward to doing it. So I would just encourage your audience to do that. I also got myself into two different, because I'm, again, this is new to me. So I got myself into two different writing pods. And so we would submit our work every 2 weeks, and then we would review. One was a virtual meeting thing, and one was in person, and we would review each other's work. And that was really helpful. It was a little intimidating at the beginning because these were more seasoned authors than I, but it was really great to get their feedback on, does it flow? Does it make sense? How I was structuring sentences, things like that. You'll just learn so much that you can't, it's harder to learn on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. All right. Now let's slide into our Pivo pivot. What is your favorite word?
Oh, next.
What is your least favorite word?
Should.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Mm. Um, just learning anything new. I'm so curious and just learning new things about any topic.
What turns you off?
Negativity.
What's your favorite cuss word?
I don't cuss. I just not really even in my arsenal of words that I think of. I just never been a habit of mine, so
Okay.
I don't have one.
What sound or noise do you love?
Birds chirping in the morning.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Anything loud.
What profession other than yours would be fun to try?
I'd love to be an artist, like
What profession would you not like to do?
a physician.
And Betsy, what do you hope people say about you on your 100th birthday?
that I didn't die with the music inside.
Mm.
And that also my goal in life, I wake up every day and my daily goal is just that my presence positively impacts somebody's life today. So my hope is that the people there would be able to say that.
Mm. Well, your presence positively impacted my world today, and I know it's going to positively impact the listeners when this comes out. Thank you so much for giving your time, your presence, and your heart.
Oh, thank you, Lori.
Yeah. And if this episode touched you in some way, please like it, rate it, review it, share it with a friend who might want to hear what Betsy and I talked about today. And I will see you back here next time.